as you mentioned, new name, but still the same cast every Friday night. Matthew Lloyd and Sam McClure. Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening, Sam and Jimmy. I love last night's game. It was one of the better ones I've watched this year. Just the way Collingwood just bring their best to the table each and every time they play. I think they're punching above their weight, Collingwood, in what they're doing with having players out, but they've got such a strong system and such a well-drilled side. They took it up to Hawthorn. It's probably I don't know who deserved to win. I probably thought if they played that game 9 times out of 10, Hawthorn would win it because of what they had out there and all the entries and the clearance wins. And on tonight, can't wait to see Freo live. Have not seen them live this year, and I think there's only about 4 teams who are good enough to win it this year, and they're one of them, so I look forward to seeing what they can do.
Who are the other 3?
They are Brisbane, it is the Sydney Swans, it is Hawthorn, and it's Fremantle. Gold Coast are a watch now, but I think they're the best 4 in it.
Can the Pies do any sort of damage in September?
I don't think so. Damage, I think they could win 1, maybe 2, in terms of if they get to the qualifiers. Yep. That's the wild card, maybe 1 more, but I don't think they're any better than that, but I'm sure others may disagree with me.
Yeah, Well, I'm not disagreeing with you. I do think Collingwood can do some damage because they're so well drilled and organised. It's going to be a tough team to beat Collingwood, and they are timing their run and their players to be fresher and better. And we spoke to Steele Side Bottom last night, and he said, "Look, we're 15-2." And then we just fell off a cliff, and we're trying to avoid that again, and so we're going to stay pretty strict to the plan. 133693 693 is our number. It's the Nick Theodosi open line. Nick Theodosi Prestige Cars. Their SUV and EV centre is full of new stock. There you go, Sam. Everybody should own a Prestige car at least once in a lifetime.
What are you saying?
I'm helping you.
What are you helping me with?
Well, Lloydie's going to get himself some flights to different places around the world. We're going to help you with a vehicle through the Nick Theodosi.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's caught your attention? You're busy this week. You're out and about at press conferences. You're covering the game. What caught your eyes and ears
Well,
this week?
a few days ago, it probably would have been the goings-on at the Melbourne Footy Club, who had a pretty difficult week. I think they tried to manage their way through it with some of their messaging, which I didn't mind. But ultimately, when you sack a CEO 7 months into his tenure, it's always going to be a little messy. But it has been another messy week at league headquarters, hasn't it? There's just so many different things that seem to be changing each and every week. It's, not necessarily saying that those things didn't need to change, but from the ARC to the new draft concessions, Greg Swan's had a mountain of work to do, really, early on in his career at the AFL.
Yeah, I don't think he was overly impressive on AFL 360. I know he's normally impressive in front of the microphone, but I don't think that was his best work.
Why didn't you like it?
He could have been stronger and more direct with a number of questions that were fired at him from Jared Waitley and Gary Lyon, who I thought actually did a really good job. They pressed him. They continued to press him to get clearer answers for the football public regarding stand rules and different things like that. I think they actually did it very well, those two gentlemen, and they're very experienced campaigners in the media. But I think often the question gets asked, they answer, then we quickly move on. But the follow-ups were very good. But I thought Luke Beveridge kicked off the week really well, and then Greg Swan responded. So let's take a listen to both gentlemen.
The unfortunate thing is you guys and girls are the ones who the AFL are paranoid about because they don't want you to criticise them. But every time you do, they go and change something. So it's not this regime's fault. It's the operational regime of the last 15 years that keep changing things.
I know what he said, that, the media go nuts and we change the rules, but some of them you modify, but that's been going on forever. Like the coaches make changes and then we have to make other changes.
So Luke Beveridge had I think we clocked it out here on 3AW, about a 3-minute and 8-second speech. It felt like he'd been sitting on it for a while.
A rant.
Yeah, but it was very well articulated and he raised some good points. Do you feel like we as a media AFL industry put that much pressure on the AFL that they react?
I think there is a sense, even a clubland, Jimmy, that some clubs are really strong at just being strong. And let's not listen to the outside noise, whereas other clubs will respond to the way the press is talking about their coaches. So I think it goes for clubs and the AFL with how it's going. And I do agree with Greg Swan in what he says in that I think the clubs are ahead of the AFL because there's such great brains within it's a full-time thing. I think there's talent. There's 10 coaches probably at every club when you count development, assistant coaches, senior coaches, director of coaching, and they're always looking at ways to get ahead and use the rules. So when the stand rule come in, brought the system,
essentially.
People weren't standing the mark, and then the
Yeah.
AFL are forever chasing their tail, and then the AFL clubs will then find a way to get around that rule. So then the AFL are forever changing things, and that's where, I don't think we have the best people at AFL level, and I think the stronger people are at clubland.
But Lordo, didn't they go and get the best people? Yeah. Like Tom Harley and Greg Swan were seen as two really key appointments for Andrew Dillon. Because our criticism, when I say the media, was saying that after Gillan McLachlan left, there wasn't enough leadership at AFL House. So if they don't have strong enough leadership now, when will they? That would be my question. Look, I thought Swan was okay last night. I understand what you mean. He wasn't that impressive. It did get me thinking, though, and would love our caller's perspective. If you could just change or scrap one thing, what would it be? Like, you don't have to overcomplicate it. So for me, just get rid of the ARC. When we get the technology that is good enough to be able to be used and implemented by people who are intelligent enough, then we can use it. Right now, we don't have those things. So just give the umpires the power to make their call in live play and we all move on. I personally could deal with the 1 in 10 or 1 in 15 howlers, to use that quote, that go against you. Because we used to do that for 100 years. Why can't we get back to that?
No technology at all.
No.
What about the Ben Keys situation? So stopping the howlers where, or if it goes back to the centre bounce after a goal and you realise it wasn't a goal,
bad luck.
You know what I mean? I don't mind it for that situation.
Love to get your thoughts. 133 693. But I think Greg Swan is impressive. I just thought he wasn't impressive.
I know what you meant.
It's like he had a bad game. But I think the AFL, they create, or they get themselves involved in issues that creates great angst. And I think where supporters get frustrated and then it builds one on top of the other is when the AFL doesn't help itself. And I think one actually great thing that Greg Swan does, he's willing to stand in front of a microphone and say, hey, we got it wrong. But where Lloyd is going as well is you can tap into some great minds who are not only at clubland but are now outside the system. There's plenty of great football brains out there that they could lean into and actually simplify the things. And that's where I took Luke Beveridge's speech, State of the Nation, was you can strip things back and still have a positive influence instead of constantly overcomplicating it. Or as Eddie Maguire always says, stop putting your head in the meat grinder. So my suggestion, and I've been banging on it for a while, and we'd love to get your thoughts, 133 693, I think there's a really good opportunity to sit down and instead of just going, no, it's all fine, all good, the MRO, the tribunal, and the appeal system, we can fix that really quickly. And we can streamline it, and that's not placing blame at Michael Christian. Like, we can simplify it from the table of offences, football and non-football. If it's a non-football act, you're immediately at a week. Football, you can start with a lower bar as far as fine and work your way up. If you have multiple football acts, well, then you're going to have to go spend some time out to either work on your technique or you're not taking care of other players. And then you have one tribunal. And let's also remove all the lawyers stacking up in and turning into a KC fest.
It's a good start. I think ARC has been a big drama this year. Tribunal's been we're only at round 8, aren't we? So that ARC's been a real problem. The Tribunal's been a real problem. And then I'll throw up the fixturing where we got off to a shocker with the opening round.
It's a great point.
And then tonight, then we had buys pretty much in the first couple of weeks, so you lose momentum. We've had a double header Friday night where Sydney and the GWS. Tonight we've got a double header where we've got the big showdown and we're going to have eyeballs here watching. So I think fixturing, and then we'll have the mid-season, which I think is the hardest time in football when they come in, mid-season when teams are out of it, it's winter. I just don't think we maximise injuries. Yep. We don't maximise the fixture well enough as strong. So gather round's great because it picks everyone up. In terms of how exciting that is, but I think we could be smarter with playing everyone once and then taking it from there a smarter way.
Well, you highlighted this last night. My issue with the draft changes, they've been so slow to get to them, and then all of a sudden there's this urgency that we have to bring them in. And they're using history as an example, but why didn't they use the history of when was the worst time to be down the bottom as a club? It was when the Giants and the Suns came in. And it was a good time to be good. So like Geelong, Hawthorn, Sydney and Collingwood, because sides couldn't actually go down the bottom, come back up because the draft was compromised. Essendon, Carlton and Port Adelaide and other clubs down the bottom, why don't we get them really strong leading into Tassie?
Yep.
Tassie dominates the draft, and at that time, that's when you bring in all the draft rule changes.
I tend to agree. I mean, I'm staggered that in a billion-dollar industry where we worry so much about the integrity of the competition, we have now handed two sides an incentive to lose. It's staggering to me. Like, no one is suggesting that Port Adelaide and Carlton are going to actively look to finish lower now, because we know that doesn't work. But to even enter that as a possibility now in-game, in-season, is wild to me.
Peter's up next. Good evening, Peter.
Taking the call, and apologies because my response is less operational and more strategic. The one thing I would change is I would get rid of the entire executive leadership at the AFL. These guys, especially the last 7-8 years, given the money they are earning, they've shown nothing resembling leadership and far from innovation. At best, they've been poor followers of the NRL. In marketing, they call them laggards. And to be honest, it doesn't matter who you bring, how many swans you bring in. When the fish rot is rotten at the head, nothing will change for the betterment.
So who would run the comp then, Peter, if you got rid of them all?
You bring new people in, Sam. At that sort of money, you have people that create miracles, not just give you poor excuses for existing. Seriously, we call these guys management or leadership?
Would the game be different if Brendan Gale was given the job?
Oh, good question.
I don't know. I'm not trying to avoid that question. There's so many moving parts. I think, remember, it wasn't just Gill who left. So, Kylie Rogers went to racing, Travis Hull went to the Grand Prix. They were two pretty
senior figures in the game.
But they didn't want to. Trav would have liked. Did he leave because he didn't get the top job? Yeah.
And I think Kylie's pretty similar.
Yeah.
They were two big losses.
Yep.
Now, Harley and Swan have been two good additions on paper in my eyes, but we're still waiting for that change to come to fruition, aren't we?
Correct. Stuart, you're up next. Good evening.
Oh, g'day, guys. Yeah, just great topic that you've raised. I thought Greg Swan was really disappointing the other night. I just think he just comes across as quite arrogant, and I think the last thing the AFL need is arrogance and things like that with the people. It's like they're just toying with the people, and then they just change the rules. And as you said, what do they do all day? They're on God knows how much money. They're in conferences and all sorts of things. And I just find it really disappointing.
Thanks for your call, Stuart.
He's not arrogant, though, is he? He's a good man, Greg Swan.
One thing that did jump out, it was almost an admission that they've been underspending on the ARC. That, we've had to go buy some more cameras. So you've actually brought it in and saved money on doing